Let us take a quick examination of some of the methods, the strategy employed by white liberals to harness and exploit the political potential energies of the so-called Negro in America. There's no such thing as a Negro revolution. There's a black revolution, but not a Negro revolution. Who ever heard of a nonviolent revolution? Who ever heard of a peaceful revolution? Who ever heard of revolutionaries standing up like chumps with locked arms singing, "We shall overcome"? The Negro revolt is controlled by the government. The leaders of the Negro revolt, the so-called Negro civil rights leaders, are subsidized, influenced, and controlled by white liberals. And all of the demonstrations that are taking place in this country for desegregated lunch counters, theaters, public toilets, are just artificial fires that have been instigated by white liberals and is being called the Negro Revolt in hope that they can use it to fight off the real black revolution. The Times reported the president as warning these editors that they must give at least some token gains to the moderate Negro leaders in order to enhance the image of these moderate Negro leaders in the eyesight of the black masses. Otherwise, he warned, the masses of Negroes might turn to the direction of Negro extremists. And whenever you hear a white man refer to a Negro leader as a responsible Negro leader, he means a Negro leader who's responsible to him.
Congratulations, man. I got in a little trouble by it. You may recall I was saying I'm looking forward to them being organized.
Yeah,
well, you got it done in one place.
Yeah.
Let's not stop.
That's right.
The masses of black people across the country at the local level had begun to lead themselves and to take their cases to the streets on their own. The government in Washington knew that something had to be done to get the Negroes back into the corral, back under the control of the white liberal. The government immediately began to put out the propaganda, encouraging Negroes to follow only what it called responsible Negro leadership. But it's a matter of record. As long as the dogs were biting black children, as long as the dogs were biting black women, as long as the dogs were biting black babies, and the Negro leaders cried to Washington, D.C. for the intervention of federal troops, the president, one of your fellow city citizens, told them there was no law on the statute books that he could use to intervene. And when black people erupted and started taking the heads of white people.
Today I'm announcing a surge of federal law enforcement into American communities plagued by violent crime.
The troops arrived the next morning. At that point, all over the country, spontaneous demonstrations began to take place. Negroes began to talk about how they were going to march on Washington and tie up the Senate and tie up the Congress and tie up the White House.
Protests here were largely peaceful, and the crowd marched from the White House to Congress, demanding nothing less than racial justice and equality.
This frightened the government. It frightened the white power structure in Washington, D.C. The president called in the Negro civil rights leaders and told them to bring this thing to a stop. They had gone far enough. They were deviating from the script. But the Negro civil rights leaders told the president they couldn't stop it because they didn't start it. They couldn't bring it to a halt. They weren't even leading it. It's spontaneous. It's at the grassroots level. It's in the hands of the masses. It's in the streets. It has no leadership whatsoever. That was why it was so militant. When the president saw that he couldn't stop it, he joined it. He endorsed it. He welcomed it. He became a part of it.
We express our nation's deepest condolences and most heartfelt sympathies to the family of George Floyd. I've asked that the Department of Justice expedite the federal investigation into his death and do it immediately, do it as quickly as absolutely possible. But we're determined that justice be served. And I spoke to members of the family. I stand before you as a friend and ally to every American seeking justice and peace.
The president endorsed the march that should have been the tip-off. How did he gain control of the March on Washington? A study of his strategy will give you a glimpse of the political genius of the family that now rules the country from the White House and how they used the Negro to do it. This is the way they weakened its impact and changed its course. By changing the participants, by changing the contents, they were able to change the very nature of the march itself. This is what happened with the March on Washington. They didn't integrate it. They infiltrated it. It ceased to be a black march. It ceased to be militant. It ceased to be angry. It ceased to be impatient. In fact, it ceased to be a march. It became a farce. It became a picnic, an outing with a festive circus-like atmosphere, with clowns and all. This shows John F. Kennedy's shrewd strategy. In fact, that's what that F stands for, the fox. So in the final analysis of the march, it would have to be classified as the best performance of the year. In fact, the best performance of the century. It topped anything that Hollywood could have produced. And to the 6 Negro civil rights leaders also should go an Oscar for the best supporting cast.
Hey, let's do this. They all took a picture. They all took a picture before they went in and sold you out. They all went in and took a picture. Let's do this, Rashid Tlaib. Let's do this. They're all posers. They're all celebrity posers who love the celebrity of who they are. That's their brand. And if you don't see that, fucking wake up, chump.
They lent their support to what they knew was nothing but an act, nothing but a show, nothing but a farce. The black masses are still unemployed, still in the slums, are still hungry, and I might add they're getting angrier and more explosive every day.
For too long, my country, the wealthiest nation in a continent which is not wealthy, failed to carry out its full responsibilities to its sister republics. We have now accepted that responsibility. In the same way, those who possess wealth and power in poor nations must accept their own responsibilities. They must lead the fight for those basic reforms which alone can preserve the fabric of their societies. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable.